Welcome back, students, to our next lesson in Photoshop. You're going to need these two pictures that are on my lesson plans, this masking.jpg and this background.jpg. So what we're going to do to get started is I'm going to start first with this image right here. We're going to pretty much start off by taking this lady here and removing her off of this existing photo and cropping some stuff out, applying some layer mask, and then moving her over here. So the first thing I want to do before I do anything with this image, since I know this image is going to take some detail work on it, I'm going to first manipulate what I need to do here on my backdrop. So I'm going to first unlock that layer, make it into layer 0, and I want to leave this as is, and I want to go ahead and apply some color filtering. So we've done this before in our previous video, so I'm going to come over here and choose hue and saturation, and if I do that, I have the options for hue and saturation. So I'm just going to go ahead, if I brighten this just a little bit, I don't want too much, just a little bit brighter, and maybe I want to change the hue values a little bit just to kind of give it some unique flare color there. So I didn't do too much on that in the saturation. I want maybe just a little bit brighter on the colors. And so there we go. We have this nice, beautiful new popping image, and you can see that those have changed significantly, and I actually like this just slightly more. I'm also going to go in and apply the black and white filter here, right? Just so that we can work with this just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and apply this black and white filter pretty much over most of this image here, but I want to leave some space out. So let's go ahead and use our brush tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and I want it to pretty much come over these lines here that I just made. So let's just make that a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to have it brush through these lines here. I'll paint over those. You can see that makes it a very nice and vibrant approach. Okay. And what I want to do now is take these here, and if I do a selection of this image here, if I just go ahead and hide that, you can still have that filter there. But what I want to do with this is I'm just going to leave that there, and I'm actually going to uncheck that for now, just so that we can leave our hue and saturation in. But what we want to do is, you can see when I did that, it allows me to easily come in and let some of those colors bleed through. Just wanted to show that real quick, just to kind of remind you of it. Or if I want to, I can go ahead and with this black and white property, if I wanted just to let everything through, I can make a really large brush, for example, and I could go ahead and do that. But I'm going to take this layer off. So right click, delete layer, delete the black and white layer. I'm going to choose yes. All right, so now you know how you can go in and delete a layer. So that was a good exercise in layer deletion, but again, I'm going to leave this as is, so we have some nice color saturation. All right, now let's get ready to take this image here and place it transposed into here. Now, the one thing is, if you remember, before we could place an image with Illustrator, you can see there's not just an option that we have place link, place embedded. I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take this image as it is right now, and I'm going to do a Control A. And what that does is it selects everything here. And if I just go ahead and try to copy that and paste it over, you can see that the image is now there. All right, so I'm going to grab my selection tool. I'm going to drag her over to the sidewalk here, approximately where I want her to be. And so this image, I'm going to end up working with this image here and applying a layer mask in order to take out the pieces that I don't want on here. Now, I could do this here, or I could even do that, I'll Control Z, over here, and then try to bring that image over there as well. But for our purposes, let's just go ahead and copy this and paste it over here and leave her on this page here, all right? Because it's going to be pretty easy to do no matter what we do. So I'm just going to leave it about right there for now. We can always adjust where this image is positioned later. But I'm going to, from this layer, I'm going to go right here. There's the option right here. We have our key tool. We want to choose select and mask. And you can see that it has taken over this layer that we have active right now. and we have some different tools. Right? So in here, I'm just going to cancel this for one quick second here, and I'm going to hide these other layers so we're not getting confused by them. Let's go back and make sure that layer is selected. And I'm going to just rename it from layer 1 to the masking. And let's go ahead and select a mask again, so that the layer's not there getting in my way. And I'm going to do a control plus to kind of zoom in just a little bit, so I have a little bit better view to look at. Now you can see with this transparency is all the way down at 20%, so it makes it really hard to kind of see this image. So I'm going to bump that transparency up, and you can see it makes it even more difficult. So let's just leave this transparency pretty low for the moment, somewhere around 10%, so we can still see that image. Then from there, I have these different tools in here. All right, we're going to start first with this quick selection tool. You notice right now my brush is really, really tiny. So I'm just going to use my bracket key to kind of increase that by size. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply just have that trace over the lady here. And you can see that Photoshop will try to grab the information that it thinks is appropriate. Now, one thing you'll notice is that due to the size of the brush, it is grabbing more information than probably what I need. In fact, now I just grabbed everything. So I'm just going to Alt-Control-Z, take it back to the beginning, and I'm going to decrease my brush size just a little bit. And I'm going to, again, draw over this. So you just have to be careful when you're going through this. And we're just going to trace over just the general direction of her body. And if you get an extra area, that's okay. And if you don't get all of her as well, that's also perfectly acceptable. Right. See, the smaller brush size will allow you to get much more accurate results. So you can see down here, I have this area of the green background that got grabbed in. So what I do is I hold down the Alt key, and I can actually just click on that area, and it'll tell Photoshop, hey, I don't want that area there. Right. Well, the quick selection tool is really great for grabbing a lot of these areas really quickly. You'll notice that if I zoom in here, we have a lot of areas that aren't necessarily 100%. So actually, if I grab this transparency, start moving that up, you can see that there are some areas that have disappeared. You know, you have some areas around her hips here. You have this area with her hair that's also pulling some green background. So what I can do is use this brush tool right here, the fine edge brush, to kind of come in, and let me just increase that brush size, and really start going over some of these areas here. And Photoshop will go through and kind of correct them a little bit, so that way they're not as saturated with some of those errors that we had before. So I can just take the brush, put her over there. If I increase that, you can see it gives me even more. So you can see we've lost quite a bit of her back here. So I can actually just kind of trace over that. And Photoshop will make adjustments. So I have quite a bit of that green there in her hair, so I'm just going to remove that as well. And you see we lost a little bit of her elbows, so I'm just going to kind of trace around the edges here just to kind of make sure that we got everything. And tracing the edges is a good way to try and make sure that Photoshop didn't miss anything here. And let's just pull down, see how her foot looks down here. You can see there's quite a bit of artifacting going on from the rest of the image. And that didn't seem to really help her foot too much. So we just want that little bit right there. That one I might want to grab the quick selection tool, hold down the Alt key, and just grab out some of that black box there that's present. And you can see it remove that for me. Okay. It's having some difficulty here with her foot because of the shadowing that's going on. But we're going to call that good right there because I'm not as worried about her foot down here, because I can always just push that off the screen a little bit if I need to. But you can see everything else is a lot more touched up now. It looks a lot better than what we had before with her image. And now one thing is this is currently in what's known as onion mode. I can change this to overlay, and you can see This is the areas that are going to be masked. So you can see that there's like still some of her hair tips here that we might want to add in. There's still some a little bit right here, but you can see it. We did get quite a significant portion. Looks like we're missing a little bit of her knee, so we can add that back in. I could just drag my mouse over that to kind of fill that information back in. And Photoshop will make the appropriate adjustments. So as I come through here, I can just drag the cursor over. You can see that it's adding some of those pieces back in. And scroll down. See how much it does with the foot there. Okay. I'm actually going to just go back to my quick selection tool, hold down the plus key here, see if we can hold down that alt key to see if we can just drag away some of this extraneous information here. So that's not too bad now. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it's doable for what we need. All right, now there's a couple of things. You have additional adjustments that you can do in here in your global refinements, but one of the last things I want to show is in here in your output settings, because you notice we have some blending here with the colors here. I'm going to choose decontaminate colors, and I want to leave this on new layer with layer mask because that's just one of the better options I can do. So leave it turned back to onion skin. And what I'm going to do is once I have everything all set, I'm just going to click on OK. And you can see here's my lady now. And remember, we hid all these other layers, so I'm just going to leave that masking layer off. I'm going to click on these, and by putting on a new layer, I could have put it on the same layer if I wanted, but I put on a new layer so I can see the before and the after between these two of the changes that I've made. So here's the lady that I made, so I'm just going to do a Control-0 just to reset. And I'm going to grab, and I can now move her around to fit into my image. Now I might say, well, this is a little bit large or something like that, which you can do adjustments for. Right? Now you notice I have to make sure that when I'm grabbing this, I'm grabbing the appropriate layer and I'm moving her around accordingly. All right, one of the last things I want to do here is, like I said, I want to try and resize her so she looks a little bit more proportioned to what we have going on here. So I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to Transform, and in here I have options. So I want to scale because I want to kind of keep this in perspective. I can, of course, grab this and stretch and skew, but I don't want to distort her dimensions. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key, just like I used to do in Illustrator. You can see I could make her really small, I could really make her large, but I want to kind of keep her dimensions relatively the same here. And I'm going to do that and hit Enter, and I'm just going to go ahead and put her back here near where this SOS box is, so you have a little bit of perspective. And you can see there she is. All right. Now I can of course do other things, like I can come in, for example, and if I want to get rid of this original masking layer, I can do that as well. I can just delete layer. I can also go into this layer, for example, and I can apply effects to that. So for example, I could apply hue, saturation, color balance, all those different things that we kind of start looking at. So I'm going to do her saturation. I'm going to maybe increase the saturation for her just a little bit. And you can see as I do that, it's also applying the background layer. So you have to just be careful when you're doing options like that. So let me just remove this with the delete key. So I want to, at this point, call it good. One of the last things I'm going to do, though, is I need to make sure I come in and save it. So I'm going to do a File, Save As, and I'm going to save this as Photoshop Exercise 1. When this comes up, I just click OK. And I'm going to then, of course, wait for it to finish saving. And once it's done that, we're going to then do like we've done before. We're going to go ahead and save it as, wait for that, 99%. But anyways, we're going to go down to File. We're going to go to Save As. And what we're going to do is we're going to save it again as a PNG file. So file save as, call it a PNG, and it'll just be exercise1.png. Click on save, and then choose OK. That concludes our notes for today, folks. Until next time.